Welcome once again, guys. This is the Whiteboard series that I've started on my YouTube channel. It's a Nakshatra Guru Pool. Whiteboard is a refreshing, thought-provoking series of interviews that I do with researchers, scholars, and students of nakshatras who come here and present their original findings and teach us new ways of understanding and mastering the divine secrets of these lunar mansions. So this is the second part of the Magha Nakshatra that we did. So I would like to invite Dr. Kanholy Santhip Krishnan again for the second part. Welcome, Santhip.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Pai. It's always an honor to be here in your channel. And yeah, this is the second part. The Magha theme, Rahu's in Magha right now, so we had to talk a lot, and I wanted to spend a lot of time talking Pitris and talking about Pitris, our ancestors, give them their due respect and time, So I'm glad at least that information is out there. So
this is something that I always wanted to do, Santhip. I want more researchers to come now and speak about Magha Nakshatra because of Rahu's transit there.
right.
We're doing this with you. I'm inviting many more people to speak about Magha, and so that there's new knowledge, new themes which are coming out. So this is very fascinating. So tell us what you have to teach us today.
Right. So share my screen. Are you seeing my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay. So last time we completely discussed deities of Magha, and the next section of within the framework, which I always went by, would be to discuss the symbols associated with Magha Nakshatra. So here I'm showing pictures of two main symbols used in Magha Nakshatra. One is the room on the left and the royal palanquin on the right. So the interesting about throne room is that it's a room where there is a throne. There is a reason why I'm breaking it down, so that we relate each and every element, and that will bring us new insights. So throne is a seat where a king sits, and the room is the room where the throne is kept in. So being a symbol actually reveals deep layers of insights which the Magha Nakshatra can reveal, especially how it will express energies in this day and age. So a throne room symbol, you can immediately connect it with royal descendants, royal ancestry. And a king inherits his throne. So there will be inheritance and inheritance issues. So a king will be inheriting the kingdom's enemies, kingdom's blessings, everything is inherited. Now the second interesting topic is the concept of throne and room. Throne is in a room. And because there is a room concept, a connection to real estate can also be seen. And that's actually been seen. In positions of authority, power, that's kind of implied because you go and meet officers who are occupying a particular seat or particular chair, so that's kind of obvious for these natives to have some kind of positions of authority or power. Servants to do the work because king has servants. So these Magha natives will find lot doing their work for them. So I've seen this happen many times that they'll have friends who will work for them. They'll have colleagues who will end up doing a lot of work for them. And it's like they would be wondering, why is this happening? Why am I getting my work? But it's like that ancestral, that energy of servants to do the work is around these Magha natives. Attendants is again servants. Now the royal palanquin is another interesting symbol because a royal palanquin is the palanquin where the king is inside and the servants palanquin. So it's a very expensive vehicle. So in this day and age, natives would be driving Ferraris or Bentleys and things like that, And obviously, Bentley is larger than life, so these natives may act larger than life. They may have excellent showmanship skills, like, hey, I'm driving the Bentley, look at my Ferrari, So that's an interesting side to it because obviously you are not your car or you are not your Bentley, that you are more than that. That's what many natives shouldn't forget, that not their possessions, they are not the vehicles, they are not the rooms, but at the end of the day, they are themselves. What these Magha natives are completely aware of. That's the highest level of awareness, actually. So when they become themselves, they are able to sacrifice their own shadow selves. So that's with every self there is a shadow self, but able to sacrifice your own ego, the larger betterment. That's when these Magha natives will really rise to power, and that's why many of these Magha natives are also associated with conquerors, kings. And in this day and age, it's the CEOs who are conquering, social areas, different areas, things like that. So they are natural CEOs, they are natural business owners. There's a good chance that these natives love to do their own business. Rather than work for someone else, they will end up doing their own business. And the throne room is another element of the theater. So an actor who's performing on a stage is actually the king, so there is this natural acting energy within the Magha native. Same way rock stars, these are the rock stars of this day and age. These are the natives who would be inclined towards doing rock shows, performing on stage, can be anything. And the biggest catch for all Magha natives is respected. So they are not asking for anything else. They are only asking respect. As long as you're a Magha native, they'll be happy. And because of this, a king will be respectful towards his servants. The servant may be the lowest of the servants, but as long as the servant is respecting the king is bound to respect back the servant and to take care of the servant. So that's a very important thing to understand, and how sun is all about respect. So the clear themes of sun can be seen here. And sun indicates the respect which you get in your life. The higher the sun, the more you have, But then also represents the ego issues, which I've discussed here slightly. Something all natives, especially with Magha, needs to be aware of. Their strong sun can bring along with it the shadow issues with sun. That's something they need to be aware of. So speaking about the sun, the blessing which these Magha natives have is that once they begin to connect with the sun, that will solve almost 95% of all their issues. And the easiest way to connect with the sun, as per yoga, is to do the sun salutation, which is what I've shown on the left here. And there have been many solar civilizations in the past. So Egypt has been a strong solar civilizations where the sun was respected, and there were many solar practices, things like that. So I've seen these Magha natives be involved into sun gazing practices. They were trying to connect with the sun. They would try to connect with sunrise and sunset using the Agnihotra Homam, right, Dr. Pai? Yeah. So these natives would be
that's
naturally
correct, yeah.
Right.
Inclined.
Yes. All right. So inclined to do the Agnihotra Homa, which is the yajna or the ritual which you do during sunrise and sunset. Specifically during that time, you do chant and give an offering to the fire with certain other elements. And that's one thing, but there are many other solar practices out there. There may be sun gazing practices. There may be other mantras. I've seen these natives will try to simply be out there in the sun. It's the best thing they can do. Spending time with the sun and even expressing gratitude to the sun. You have to remember that sun is actually an intelligent being, and sun is actually driving the entire life force within the planet Earth. So it's like these natives really simply have to express the positive emotions to the sun, expressing gratitude to the sun, expressing joy, expressing happiness, being happy with the sun, and then they'll find sun beginning to shine more to them. And there is this is a kind of different subculture of, for lack of a better word, subculture, new age culture, which is completely based on sun. You'll find plenty of material out there, simply because there are many civilizations past which worship the sun, and there are many other modern day versions of working with these solar energies through these civilization practice. So through various civilization practices, such as the South American shamans and Native Americans, things like that. However, an easy way for Magha native is to simply meditate upon the sunrise, sunset. Simply look into the sun, sunrise, especially in the first 10 minutes of the sunrise. That's the best, most full time when they can charge themselves up by gazing into the sun rays that are coming out during the sunrise. And the first 10 minutes will be the light, the time when the sunlight isn't too harsh on your eyes. So, and after that, even just looking for, even after that, it's supposed, you're ideally supposed to use a polarized mirror to look at the sun. After that, that's the origin of why there are many mirrors that are special spiritual mirrors in different culture. Like in Kerala, you have Aranmula, which is like a mirror, very spiritual mirror, and it's like part of many rituals and stuff like that. But then even if you have any problems, begin meditating upon sunrise or gaze upon the setting sun, then most of your problems will simply disappear. And if you can't see the sun, especially when it's cloudy now, when it's winter time, up a candle or a lamp and chanting the Gayatri mantra. That is a great way to connect with the sun. The Gayatri mantra is you can find it on it. If you begin to chant it, it is supposed to be a great way to inspire your vitality, your sun, your life within you. And I've seen many natives with Magha, prominent Magha placement, when they begin to do with the sun, it's like their life completely changes. Especially to begin to, if you feel less confidence and they begin to chant with the sun, then you'll be accepting more of yourself and you'll be comfortable being yourself. And that natural confidence within you is invoked by connecting with the sun. So this is why, and Magha natives are blessed because you're seeing the sun every day. So, you can't see Mars every day. You can't see Jupiter every day. You have to wait until the night sky. But then during daytime, you can see the sun. So these natives are blessed that they have their sun happening every day, visible every day. So, and honestly, if they aren't connecting with the sun, they are just idiot. Sorry to say that, but they are just, it's literally they are just not using their brain. It's like this is because once you begin to connect with the sun, the natural solar qualities within you, the natural self qualities within you will begin to shine. So when you begin to connect with the sun out there, then the sun within you will shine. And sun is the ultimate karka for soul. So the soul shines. And that's the best thing with the best thing a Magha native can do to connect with the sun. So that's one thing. The second symbol that is a plant that is associated with Magha native is the Magha Nakshatra. It's the banyan tree. So the banyan tree is a tree which is found plenty in India. The roots are hanging from the top to the down. So usually the roots are hidden under for every tree. But banyan tree is probably the only tree where the roots are coming from the top to the down, where you get to see the roots. So ancient rishis associated banyan tree with Magha, just showing the strong connection of roots, traditions, and family history for these natives. So since the roots are coming down, you could say that a banyan tree is deeply connected to the roots. And actually the roots are providing support to the banyan tree itself. So it's as if these roots are becoming apparent. So apparent in the sense that the ancestral karma or the roots from the past are coming to be cleared up. So that's what these natives will tend to find themselves in certain positions of power and authority. It is actually their past life karma, which should be the roots or the origin point of the entire tree. And that is becoming visible for them in their lives to be dealt with. So many times these natives will have a strong sense of tradition, strong sense to stick with traditions, and strong sense of cultural values, family values, and strong sense of family connection. And if many of depending upon the planet, house lords and all of that, many of the karmas will definitely have some kind of past life connection. And I've seen this many times. And an important remedy for a Magha native is to simply pour water to banyan tree regularly, and it will slowly begin to clear up your astral or past life karma. So it's an important principle to understand that the reason why these rishis associated these plants, animals with a particular nakshatra is because that particular resonant energy of them is vibrating within these plant fields, within these animal fields. So once you're beginning to acknowledge that, once you're beginning to honor the ancestors, once you're beginning to honor that particular tree or animal, correspondingly that resonance will improve your own karma. So that is the exact that's happening when you pour water to a banyan tree regularly. And the banyan tree in the neighborhood, look for very, very old trees. So there is a tree called boa tree in Australia that would be equivalent to the banyan tree, because they're also very old trees. So you're honoring the ancient trees. So in California, that would be the redwood trees. So that's another alternative, but that's a huge research topic. What trees would have the same resonant frequencies? Hopefully, my generation are enlightened enough to see the different other versions of banyan tree with regard to Magha and stuff like that. So, and one important point which I want to mention with sun remedy, and same thing with Magha remedy, with the banyan tree remedy, is that sun being a malefic planet, any remedy you do for a malefic planet, you need to be continuing it for a long time. So it's like once you begin to do any kind of remedy, once you begin to meditate the sunrise, sunset, or even begin to pour water for the banyan tree, you can't just do it for 6 weeks. Stop it. It's going to be a lifelong thing which you have to do. And literally, what you'll find out is that once it becomes a part of it, once it becomes your habit, then your life will begin to change. I've seen that many, many times. So, like natives with debilitated sun, if they begin to pour water using a copper vessel to the sun and honor the sun, then they're supposed to do that for the rest of life. So any sun remedy or be it remedy for Saturn, if you do, you need to be for the rest of your life, and you yourself will be benefiting. So it makes sense to actually do it. And the people leaf, which has been used as the backdrop for many gods and goddesses. So you find a lot of images, the people leaf with the Krishna inside it, Ganesh inside it. So this banyan tree is a very holy tree, actually. So that's one thing.
See, one of the things, Santhip, which I've read about these trees, especially the most sacred trees for the Hindus. One is the people tree, one is the banyan tree, and then the third is Udumbara, or the cluster fig tree. Now, all these trees, they say you can never grow these trees. They grow on their own.
Right.
You can never plant.
The seeds need to be transported by birds, and that's only when
exactly. So that is the beauty of these trees, and especially the Udumbara and the people tree. They say it gives oxygen 24/7.
Right. Wow.
That's why people say whenever you go there you get a lot of oxygen. So people with respiratory problems and things like that, they typically go to these trees. And there's also a belief that saying that the banyan tree, what you see, what is unseen, which the tree is huge. There is a big tree which grows below the earth than what it grows above the earth.
Wow.
The roots of it go many feet below the earth, and that's why they say what you see is only the tip of the iceberg. The entire tree is below. So that is the significance of showing that how closely you are knit with your ancestral spirits or your lineage. That's very deep, but it is unseen, because what you see is only the tree which is above, but the real tree grows below.
Right. Interesting. Wow. Banyan tree itself is so huge that you would never expect more parts to be there down the ground. So that's amazing, actually. And almost every temple they have a banyan tree outside, so it's showing how important these banyan trees are also.
Actually, it's the other way around. Wherever the banyan trees grew, there was a temple which was built around it.
Wow.
It was not that the temple was built and then the banyan tree came.
Right. Wow, that's amazing. That's really amazing. So so that's the banyan tree. It's a very important symbol important tree that needs to be honored by everyone, actually, not just the Magha natives. Magha natives more for sure. So the next slide here, I'm just reintroducing the framework. So I'm just showing that we are halfway through. So it's the deities, we discussed astrologies, we discussed the symbols, festivals and rituals. Now things are going to expand a little bit more because I'm introducing some new areas. So I'll step up. Now I'll step into the fundamental pattern of every nakshatra. So we have already seen the fundamental themes associated with the nakshatra energy. But there is a particular pattern of desire, Shakti, patience, above and below, final result of the nakshatra energy. That is like the fundamental abstract principles, which is the source for the nakshatra energies to come forth. And within the blank space of your mind, you'll find that initially there is a desire. And then within the desire is expressed itself as the Shakti around the desire. And this Shakti will have a foundation above from which the Shakti is descending onto. So there will be two mechanisms. There will be a foundation above and there will be foundation through which the Shakti is actually associating itself with as it begins to express itself completely. And the intermingling of all these factors will result in the result of a Shakti and foundation above and foundation below. So this will be the final result. But actually, the result is the simultaneous combination of the foundation above, foundation below, the desire, and the Shakti. So it's a very intricate set of principles and patterns which is actually expressing itself in every nakshatra. No matter what the event, you can isolate the source of the event or the pattern of the event within principles. So that's one. That's a fundamental pattern for every nakshatra. So now let's look at what it would be.
Santhip, I've lost your video.
Oh, okay, wait. Can you see me now?
Now I can, yeah. Now I can, yeah.
Okay. What did you miss me? What was it?
No, I could hear you very well. It's just the video went off. Your audio was.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So, right, yeah, that's very interesting. So now, let's see. Okay. So now for Magha Nakshatra, the desire of Magha Nakshatra is to flourish in the world of ancestors. So these natives would love to be famous amongst their ancestors. They would love to be amongst their pantheon of their ancestors, So if they come from a strong family, they would love to be known as a member of this family or as someone who carried on the family name forward. So that's a fundamental desire that every Magha native, or even when this nakshatra would operate in. The Shakti of this desire is Tyaga Shepani Shakti, which is the power to leave the body. So the ancestors are flourishing in the astral world. And only when you leave the body, or only when you have the power of the body, can you actually flourish in the world of ancestors. So it's a fundamental Shakti. So it's the power to leave the body is a very interesting concept because it's showing how much these natives would be willing to sacrifice themselves to accomplish their desires, which is to flourish in the world of ancestors. So they would love to be famous because in this day and age, ancestors are in the annals of history. So they would love to make their history, and they would love their story to be told. So say that is his story. So his story will become history. So that's the same way how Magha natives would be thinking, and the way they accomplish this would be through the Tyaga Shepani Shakti, which should be the power to leave the body. And then the foundation above is mourning. It's very, it's a process where they are willing to let go of themselves, so they can, so that the foundation below, which is leaving the body, can be accomplished. And it's very interesting when you think about the leaving the body. And one theme that is very clear is that when these natives are able to leave the body, It's as if that these natives will be having a very active astral body or very active astral life. So these natives will be very easily dreaming about their grandparents. They'll be dreaming about their maternal grandparents. More strongly, they will be definitely dreaming about their paternal grandmother and their maternal grandfather, specifically because Ketu for these grandparents particularly. But even otherwise, they would be dreaming about ancestors. They would be dreaming about ancient civilizations. They would be dreaming about ancient places. Why? Because they have the power to leave the body, and they will actually end up leaving the body. And these are natives who are capable of really very extraordinary travels and extraordinary travels. That's one way to put this. And the final result of all these elements is death. Now, death is a very interesting concept. So, death is if you, in mundane life, if you say death, people would be afraid. But in spiritual terminology, death is a very supreme principle. Death is actually the principle which is pointing to the necessity of surrendering your own self so that actual enlightenment can take place. So it is as if these Magha natives have an incredibly strong spiritual side because they are capable of achieving the highest of states, highest of enlightenment very easily through their own actions and efforts. It is actually possible for these Magha natives to accomplish that death. And there are very various levels for this result to happen. One that can simply be the desire to be dead. Some people may even try to leave. The suicide level is the natural depressive side of things. But as you have an improved, what begins to happen is that these natives will be willing to sacrifice themselves for the sake of the family. So there is a element of sacrifice that can happen. And then the highest spiritual death is that of the death of your own ego or death of your own self, so that you connect the light of your own soul with the ultimate source of it, which is literally the entire universe. So what can happen, literally kings, like there is nothing that can stop you. So it is the highest principle of death which these Magha natives can easily accomplish. So, and death has its own expression. So you can kill someone by conquering what ancient kings used to do, but at the same time you can also kill the negativity. You can bring in new light, which is what these natives are gifted through their energy and their own life and actions about. So this entire pattern is pointing to how spiritual these Magha natives can be. And normally we tend to think about Leo as being selfish, self-obsessed, that kind of people. Those kind of natives who are self-obsessed, narcissists, but they do have a spiritual side to them. And the difference is very, very subtle the higher you get. You may think of something a narcissist, but at the same time, they may be just going through different levels of self-sacrifice. So it's a very, very subtle difference that happens. And obviously, if you are a magician, then yeah, you can definitely cause death. That is the other side to it, which is what we'll discuss right now. Magha phonetically sounds similar to mage, magicians, and magic. So literally, Mag has the first phonetic sound of magicians, magic. And the sounds that are associated with Magha, each of the padas would be Ma, Mi, Mu, and Me. So magic is clearly corresponding with first pada, magic, magic. So these natives are natural magicians. They can be great entertainers. They can literally hold the stage, and they may be mages as well. So like if they were playing any games, video games, then they would naturally be inclined to take the role of the mage. That's because they are inclined towards that. They inclined towards magic. They believe in the power of magic and miracle of magic, things like that. And a lot of the rings is wondering that would rule them all. And a Magha native would easily understand why the entire why there was a huge competition behind the entire ring. They would understand power by its nature. It's because it was the one ring that them all. So they would clearly be cognizant of the power of themselves and the nature of power, the power politics dynamics, the power dynamics, power mechanisms is something these natives will be intricately aware of, because of which they actually end up being natural leaders, politicians, and people who chase power. So they may be the humans who are chasing the rings, or the elves who are uh, wary of the ring, but they would understand the ring and they would be very familiar. And the worst side of this is that if you look at the sama, mi, mu, me, the sound mi is very much similar, phonetically similar to the literally me, so they may have to go all me, so as I said, they may be narcissists. At the highest level, they may have spiritual self-surrender that is possible, because of which they can achieve great spiritual heights. And believe me, the heights which a Magha native can achieve is unsurmountable. But at the lowest level, they may be all about me. Why me? Why is it happening to me? Why are people ignoring me? Why I'm not getting? So that kind of me will be very strong for Magha natives. So that's something they just need to be aware of. So for any Magha natives to simply be willing to sacrifice themselves for a higher purpose, and then they'll find themselves rising to a bigger height and a great height. That's what I think. So this was very interesting, Dr. Pai. And let's see. So next.
And what do you think about the fourth pada? Because they say me.
Maybe it could be like, I think May would be, they'll be more active in May because the sun will be exalted in Aries, so that could be something. They'll be very much looking forward to the summer months. That's one thing. Yeah. And then May would be like, you may do it.
You may do it. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking.
Right. You may do it. May I do it? May I be the one who do that? Things like that. And if you also, many of the classics, which is again associated with Magha, they have a very full language. So like, may I please do it? So they may be very intricate of the ethics. That's at least with the May sound. Obviously, with other May sound, with a Ma sound, you can also say masters. So they may literally be masters of them, of what they're doing. You can see the Mage is actually book. So these natives will be very familiar with classics. They may be very familiar with almost all the epics, all the mythological stories. And they would be very much inclined towards loving Superman more than Batman. That's what I would say. Because they themselves are Superman, that's the, they are handling a lot of things. They are actually literally like Superman. They feel so strong because Superman has the power. Batman, even though Batman defeated Superman, that's another debatable question. But themselves will feel like Superman because that natural inclination they would feel. And that's one thing I've seen also, because they really are kings, and in ancient times only Superman used to be kings. That's what. That's one thing. Because Dr. Pai, one theory was that in ancient times, the kings used to be given a crown because they literally have their crown chakra opened. So as an acknowledgement of that level of enlightenment, that was the reason why they were given crowns, so that you are acknowledging like, okay, your crown chakra is open, you're enlightened, please guide us. So it's something of those nature. That's the heights which a Magha native can do. So right. So now we have the Leo constellation, and it's falling in the first 0 to 13 degrees in 20 minutes. But within the Magha constellation, you have all these fixed stars. And one of the most important fixed star is that of Regulus. And Regulus is the fixed star which is clearly falling in the of the lion. So these with strong courage, they have courage like a lion to anything that they face. So if you have a planet anywhere close to 8 degrees of Leo, you are very lucky. You will have courage. that Karaka Tattva will definitely have some kind of courage. You will have some kind of fame, that natural um, royal feeling within you will be very, very strong. And these natives are very brave and they are very heroic. They perform heroic feats, especially regulars. And there are a lot more research done upon fixed star of regulars, especially by Western. So those natives, those research is perfectly applicable. I'm very sure. Now, now this is one interesting topic which I came about. Um, Lion, as we talked about Lion, about how Leo is connected with Lion, and now the interesting thing is that a lion is recognized mane around his face. A lion has a huge mane, and that's the royal, around which the lion is wearing the mane. At the same time, even a horse has its own mane. So the hair of a horse, it's said, is actually called as a horse's mane. The most interesting thing after that is that the Pitris are actually called as manes. In Latin, in Roman times, the manes are actually the ancestors, the group of ancestors, and they are actually called as manes. So it was very interesting to see the same word, mane, as Pitris, the horse's mane, and the lion's mane. So I was trying to see if there was any astrological connection to it. And found was that Sun's Mulatrikona is in Magha Nakshatra, which is clearly in the Leo Rashi. And then you have Sun exalted in Ashwini Nakshatra, which is associated with the horse. And now Ketu is ruler of both Magha and Ashwini, and Ketu is also a Karaka for hair. So it's as if that is literally pointing to the, these natives would be, there is a strong connection between Ketu Nakshatras of Magha and Ashwini, that is clearly implied. And both these natives would actually be inclined towards having long hair. So that's why you find many of the rock star, you say someone is having a rock star look because they have long hair, because they literally feel themselves like the lion when they have a long hair. And so it was a very interesting thing to see this main sword appearing both for the lion as well as the horse. And clearly you can see the astrological interpretation, which was connecting these both. And this is actually bringing the question as to potentially why all the rishis had long hair, why all the mythological Krishna, Arjun, everybody had long hair during that time. Potentially because there was some kind of connection with the ancestors or some kind of protective Ketu kind of scattering effect, which their hair was doing. And there was this story that was floating on it about how certain Native American trackers lost their ability during war times when they cut their hair. So Native Americans would have long hair, and when they joined for the US, they had to cut their hair as per the military regulations. But then they immediately lost their sensitive ability. The interesting, that was very interesting. So it's showing how this hair, there may be something more happening here with the hair, So potentially these hair could be activating your Ketu more. So that's something you could think about. But this is one clear observation you can easily see. With any planets in Magha, these natives would love to have a hair. Or if they're mixed, then they would definitely have some issues with their hair. That's one thing I've seen. So, and this is probably why many people seem to go through a new self-identity. Like when they break up their relationship, or when they experience a breakup, the first they do is to cut their hair. So it's like they're cutting off and they're bringing out their new within them. The more sun within them. So that was a very interesting thing that came up when I was doing. And the next animal that is associated, next bird that is associated with Magha Nakshatra is the eagle. Now in Indian mythology, the eagle is immediately associated with Garuda. And Garuda is actually the vehicle of Mahavishnu, Lord Mahavishnu. And Garuda, many mythological stories associated with, and I'll just show a small snippet of it to show some interesting themes that are coming out. Now, there is a pillar that is called as Garuda pillar. It was actually established by a Greek Heliodorus, who actually adopted Hinduism. He styled himself as a Bhagavata follower, or he became a devotee of Krishna. And then he was so enraptured by Krishna that he established a pillar with insignia at the top, and people would worship this pillar. In fact, the local would worship the Skamp Baba post of the pillar, acknowledging the Vishnu and Garuda. So these natives can easily establishing pillars like this. They may be establishing their royal, the national pillars or national identity and structures or social institutions or things of that nature that will bring pride within anyone. So because and have a sense of pure devotion to a high school. So these may be the cultural savants or the cultural safe act for trying to save the culture of the ancient races. So they may literally be themselves like Heliodorus. That's one thing you could say. Clearly, because the eagle is the animal, is the bird that is associated with Magha, and eagle is literally the Garuda pillar that is operating here. Eagle energy is clearly operating here. Now, Garuda Puranam is a very interesting Puranam, historical epic. Some of the Puranas where it is very famous for the list of punishments which is associated for every sin you make. So clearly you can see these are the, here there is some deep connection with the ancestors or the Pitris. When you die, what happens to you? So what happens in the ancestral world according to your sin? So the Magha connection is very clear with the Garuda Puranam. And on the other hand, these natives may themselves be very much aware of the classics. They may be very much aware of the Puranas. They may be very much aware of ancient epics of. So this is a very interesting theme for Garuda connection with Magha. So that is one interesting thing. And finally, you also have Garuda. So these natives may be excellent writers. And Garuda Upanishad is one of the Upanishads, which is the mystical text saying about the highest planets of the spiritual enlightenment and the process involved. In fact, some of the verses in Garuda Upanishad is used as a ritual, something as mantras to ward off snakes. And Garuda has its own enemy snakes. So that's a long story. But it will be common for these natives to have enemies, and that's one thing. But at the same time, they may also be very much into the classical texts, especially regarding enlightenment and stuff. Clearly, because there is an association of Garuda with Upanishads, Puranam, and things like that. So this was very interesting to see a mythological frame for the eagle. Now the next slide is very fascinating because this was one of the key traits which I began to observe. So what you see on this screen is that you see the face of eagle, which is the bird that is associated with Magha. Now observe the face. You can see, what do you see? You see that this eagle is fiercely staring at you. It's like the focus is almost evident. The eagle may be chilling on a tree, but then even when it's just looking at you, the staring focus is very clear. So that is very, very evident. And observe the angle of the eyebrows there is no eyebrows, but observe the angle of the eye, especially in the region close to the eyebrows. So it's a very sharp angle. Now, what I began to observe was that I was beginning to observe that many of the Magha natives were actually having eyes similar to the shape of the eagle. Or in other terms, Magha natives have eagle eyes, as what I would call them. So in fact, if you know any Magha native, if you look at this picture, you will be immediately saying, yeah, that's how his eyes look. And why? Because eyes are supposed to be the window to the soul. And Magha is clearly the Mutrikon Nakshatra of the sun. So clearly their eyes for which the Karka is sun, the vision, Karka being sun, the eye should clearly reflect the qualities of the very prominently. These themes, this sharp angle theme can be clearly seen in Magha. So that's a very interesting theme. And now the next thing which I did was I actually went and looked into the eyes of the eagle and see if there were any other things. that you could see. And eagles are very famous for their excellent eye skills. So an eagle can actually spot a rabbit 3.2 kilometers away from the height. So 3 kilometers up in the sky, you can still spot a item as small as a rabbit. An eagle descends from the sky to attack. When it does that, its muscles in the eye continuously at curvature of the eyeballs to maintain sharp focus and accurate perception throughout the approach and attack. So it may be 3.2 kilometers above the prey, and it's coming down. And as it's coming down, it's still able to adjust its course. And finally, it is able to capture its prey. So it's showing how strong this adaptive nature these Magha natives have to accomplish the task. These are the kings naturally. They may not have the far vision. They have far-sighted. They can see things at the farthest level. Literally, an eagle is able to see 3.2 kilometers away. These Magha natives will be able to see lifetimes away. They'll be able to see 2-3 lives out. They'll be, or in other words, they will be simpler time. They'll be able to see what will happen 10 years from now, and they'll be able to see what the long-term consequences very clearly. They may be literally be able to see the big picture. These are the big picture people. That's why many of these are visionaries. They literally are visionaries. They share an entirely new vision, and they are capable of leading other people. The surprising thing for a Magha native would be that one day they'll be walking along the street and on back they'll find 1,000 other people following them. That'll be a very common thing for a Magha native to happen. It's because they have that energy of this high visionary feature and how this leadership ability that's happening. They'll find themselves to be the center of the corn, where the thing attack. These are the kings who lead by charging at the front. You have seen many in movies where the king is actually leading at the front, especially the Vikings and, or even the Lord of the Rings, the king, the dwarf king leading from the front. So these are the natives who will be leading from the front, and when they turn back, they'll find 1,000 other followers following them. So, and it's showing that these natives may actually have big picture problems, So these natives have to be about their big picture. So the problem by a CEO is different from the problem a typical worker within the would face. So these natives have to be familiar with the big picture that's happening. And eyes are larger in size than the brain. So this can be pro and a con as well. So sometimes they may be so blinded by their own vision that they may not think clearly. So that's what the eagle's biology is saying. So these natives should just pay attention, that they actually listen to good counsel. And it used to be that would have good counselors. And it used to be a point where that the kings would take in all the counsel, and because they had all this counsel, they would be coming up with their own unique solution. But it's important that the king gave an open ear to all these advices. Now, as I said, the color vision is with resolution and clarity. So these natives are the big picture people. Clearly, they'll be the natives who will be having a 180-degree vision, or high pixelated vision, high resolution images. Everything will be high resolution for them. Whatever they see, whatever they do. So because of which they have a high critical nature to them too. That's another thing they need to be careful about. And they may be eagle-eyed. So they may have all these features. So they may be visionaries. They may have problems which a typical CEOs may face, like political problems, dealing with the government, things of that nature. And final thing is that eagle can identify 5 distinctly colored squirrels and locate even if hidden. So it is showing this excellent predator nature this Magha natives have, Magha Nakshatra is possessing. So it's as if there may be 60 different enemies attacking these Magha natives. Then the Karkatattva of the planet will clearly show them. They'll be able to see what is going to happen long time before what's going to happen. And because of which they are able to easily evade the enemies. So it's the same, the strong vision, sense of vision is exactly why these natives tend to experience a lot of past life karma. Because it's the same energetic pattern that is connecting themselves with the past life energy they put into motion, or which the ancestors put into motion. So that is an excellent thing. And the big catch is just to simply look at the eyes of a particular native. You can clearly see a sharp angle. If you see a sharp angle and if they're piercing, staring at you, then you can be almost 99.9% sure that that can be a Magha. If not a Magha native, it can be some Leo placement for sure. That's something clear, So that's one thing I've seen.
That's a very, very profound observation, Santhip. I think I
Right.
agree with you on that. It's fantastic. Great.
Yeah, it was very interesting because I was seeing some charts, and when I look at the native, then I would see them staring at me like a royal stare. And then I look at the chart, I immediately see like, okay, you have Magha. Yeah, makes sense. So that was interesting when it happened. And then when I finally saw the eye of an eagle, then immediately everything just clicked. So then finally I understood why that's there. So it was very interesting. And yeah, Dr. Pai, I'm sure that over time, there are actually face readers in astrology. There are many astrologers who are capable of reading your entire chart from the face. But I think definitely the eyes will definitely show some major chart for sure. So even if you master or understand this part, then okay, it should give you more insight. So now this is a slide which I actually showed before with my Purva Falguni presentation. And what I was showing here was that how mouse is associated with generational karma. So mice have been carriers of diseases that wiped out entire generations and groups. So the famous Black Death of Europe happened because of bacteria was carried from China, and it ended up killing about 200 million people over the centuries. So those centuries, particular centuries, they were literally killed, or those entire generations were destroyed purely because the mice carried away virus, the bacteria. So this kind of generational karma is seen. And typhus disease is another disease which was carried again by the mice. So a modern, more stronger interpretation is that Magha natives will be prone to have karmas which affect generations. So these will be the natives who will be more affected by in the country. So a war happens and their business goes down, or things like that. A war happens and their family is separated, things like that. So because it's like an entire generational karma because of the royal energy association they have. And also that the mouse is again a very interesting symbol. And so because of these generational karmas, they may have genetic issues. Genes may be clearly expressing problems or gifts as well, depending upon the planetary placements. But I've seen this happen again. Natives with some inherited issues, like their mother problems, and they inherited it, or their family had some problem, some mental problems, and that was getting inherited through generations. So I've seen that also happen. It's just that the karma is, they are very prone to their past life and ancestral karma. Because the more remedies they do for the ancestors, the more they are able to resolve energies peacefully, then they can hopefully bring more harmony to life. I'm not scaring people away or anything. I'm not scaring people away, but I'm just saying that there is this potential, of course, for something to happen through entire generations. But there are obviously other remedies you can do as well. So it's not like the end of the world, So if it's an interesting observation which I made, which Dr. Pai also shared early on when he was teaching us.
Something related to you talking about this Pitru dosh or something, which might be
right
connected to
yeah, it was very interesting. Because, Pitru, I've seen some families will always have someone with a mental issue or something, and mental issue can be connected with Ashwini, which is exalted position of sun, and then sun's Mul Trikona being in Magha. So yeah, some Pitrudosh seen potentially, but then I've seen some natives having inherited diseases, like some kind of poisoning, like mercury poisoning, for instance. So if their mother had mercury, they would be inclined towards mercury poisoning, because just purely it could be that 15 lifetimes ago they accidentally mixed mercury in one potion which they made, and they had to experience the mercury poisoning right now. So something along those. So generational karma, that's one strong theme. So yeah, with Pitrudosha, yeah, potential Pitrus are like definitely Pitris. So Magha is having Pitris as their deities. So clearly Pitrudosha. So yeah, that's one thing. But the national level karmas, the world wars, and all of those things will be, they'll be strongly prone to have veterans in their family. You know, war veterans, so war stories they will have to say. So things like that can also happen. So yeah, now this was an interesting thing. I wanted to slowly segue into Ganesh and the mouse connection with Ganesh. But one thing is very, it's it's a funny joke that's floating around, is that there is a thing that's called as a super brain yoga procedure, which essentially you are using your right hand to hold your left ear and your left hand to hold your right ear, and you're doing squats. You're squatting as you're inhaling, you're squatting up, exhaling. And that's someone actually trademarked it as calling a super yoga. And this is the actual, it's an actual way to improve the hemisphere resonance, hemisphere frequencies, to harmonize both your hemispheres, because you use your right hand to touch your left ear, you're improving the connection with your left and right brain of the body. So Ganesha is definitely related with both the hemispheres. So there is one connection. So when you're activating both of your hemispheres and both are being harmonized. And there are actually, and these are actually exercises to improve your memory also. So memory experts actually recommend different kinds of exercises. And the exercise is to touch right elbow with your left knee. And you can do that. And that's another thing for improving your memory, because you are again activating your right and left brain connection. So this is the actual procedure which you end up doing. So if you practice this every day for 10-12 rounds and gradually increase it at your own pace, then actually your will be improved. Your memory will be improved. The hemispherical harmony improved. You'll begin to think better because you're using both sides of the brain and you're warming it up. But funny thing is that this was actually which you commonly see in Ganesha temples. And this used to be a thing which all the ancient Gurukul teachers would give as a punishment to the students. So when the teachers would, when the student made some mistake, the teacher would simply make them do this hemisphere, make them hold their ears, and they would just make them squat up and down when they were children. So it's very thing to see how an ancient practice, which used to be practiced, which used to be very common in ancient times. That's the main reason why you see it as as being done in front of Ganesha temples by all the Ganesha devotees. How someone actually had the brains to trademark it as a super brain yoga. It's the funniest thing ever. So it's a interesting introduction to Ganesha. Why Ganesha is the god who rides on rat. The rat or the mouse is actually the vehicle for Ganesha. And so worship of Ganesha is a big remedy for Magha natives. Because Ganesha is also the god that is in charge of your karmas and dispensing your karmas. So when you begin to appease Ganesha, when you begin to connect with Ganesha, you are actually beginning to finally clear out all the obstacles from your karmas to be performed or to be cleared up. So that if you are confused about what you want to do in your life, connect with Ganesha. He will show you what your actual karma is. So worship of Ganesha, doing Ganesha chants, doing Ganesha, things like that would be excellent for Magha natives. Now the connection with Ganesha and mouse was very interesting. Something that came up was that the animal which you associate with Magha is mouse. So, and is the elephant-headed god who is riding a mouse. Now, in nakshatra terms, elephant is very interesting because one of the nakshatras that is associated with elephant is Bharani. Now, Bharani has the animal of a male elephant, and also its deity is Yama. and Yama is the god of Pitris. Now we have to remember that the deity of Magha is actually Pitris, and Yama is literally the god of Pitris, the king of Pitris, the lord of the Pitris. So clearly you can see that a Barni native will be able to literally be king of natives. So that is one interesting thing. So Dr. Pai actually mentioned this in KR's video interview about how a Barni native would be able to give instructions to Magha native, or they may be the counselors to Magha natives, to the kings. So it's a very interesting connection that came up here. And this is I observed this happen again in my own studies as well. Now what I did, now we know that Barney is the male elephant. Next natural question is that what about the female elephant? So logically it would seem that even Magha not only listen to Barney natives, but they may also be listening to Revati natives. Why? Because there is this elephant animal association with Revati. So a Magha native would be listening to both Barney and Revati natives. Now Magha is actually the male rat. The female rat is Purva Falguni. So you generalize this by that Magha and Purva Falguni natives would be listening to Barney and Revati natives. Why? Because the elephant-headed god, or the elephant energy, is riding a mouse. So energy, this kind of association will begin to happen. And I've seen this happen many times. And so yeah, that's what I said. The Barni and Revati natives can influence Magha and Purva Falguni natives. So it's an interesting association. So, I'm making out here. I've seen one part definitely work. The second part I've seen part, but it's again for the viewers to cite their observations and share whatever they see with respect to. So yeah, that's one thing. Yeah, Dr. Pai, I actually had one question at this point. What are ways to worship Ganesh? What ways would you suggest?
See, one of the things that I have heard what people say is you have to listen to Ganesha Atharva Shirsha. That's
Right.
a great thing that you can meditate on. And another way, what people say is the most common, what people meditate on the Ganesh is Om Gam Ganapate Yanam. That's
Right.
the root mantra, Gam.
Right. Gum.
Okay, Gum.
Right.
Yeah. And some of them also use Glaum Gam Ganapate Yanam. Glaum.
Om Glaum Ganapataya Nama.
Om Glaum Gam Ganapate Yanam.
Right.
Ganesha Atharva Shirsha.
Atharva Shirsha. Ganesh Atharva Shirsha and Om Gam or Om Glaum Gam Ganapataya Nama. Both these mantras are sufficient to practice, to chant on a regular basis.
If you want to connect even to your Muladhara chakra, you can also use Lam.
Lam, right, interesting.
Because Lam is the frequency of your Muladhara. So you can chant Om Lam Glaum Gam Ganapate Nama.
Right, very interesting.
Om Lam Glaum Gam Ganapate Nama. Lam is you're immediately concentrating and connecting with that's the root for your Muladhara chakra. Om Lam.
Right. So you're enhancing your foundation with the Muladhara chakra.
With the Muladhara chakra. Exactly.
Right. Okay. Great. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Dr. Pai. So yeah, that was Ganesha, and his vehicle, the mouse. So yeah, moving to second thing. Now I want to share some ways you can actually study nakshatras better. And one way I've seen to work miraculously well is to study the nakshatras that would fall exactly opposite to the nakshatra which you're studying. So the nakshatras that are falling opposite to Magha Nakshatra in Aquarius, because Leo, would be Dhanit and Satabhisha. So how can you see some themes in here? One way is to look at what themes Magha would show. Magha is a king. Magha shows tradition. Magha is loyalty, showing power. So you have all these themes associated with Magha. Now you write down what themes you find with Dhanishta. Dhanishta is wealth, music, and weapons. Dhanishta is Dhana, wealth. Music is the rhythm of the heartbeat, and weapons is because Mars is exalted in Dhanishta. Now, and finally, you have Satabisha themes, which would be abundance, healing, and spice. Abundance because it's 100 healers nakshatra. Healing because again 100 healers. And spice because Varuna is the deity of Satabisha. So there is a lot of spice. Now when you see all these three pictures immediately a pattern, you can immediately see the connection. A king would be using weapons and the king would be using spice. In fact, the spice would be his greatest weapon. So you can clearly see that there is a energetic balance because Magha is acting its karmas from the seventh house opposite to it. So only when a king uses his wealth and his power, exercises his power through weapons, by bringing in abundance, healing, and spice, will the Magha complete its entire destiny. So that's one way to look at nakshatras, which I've seen working very interestingly well. And you can do the same thing in the other nakshatras. You'll begin to find very, very interesting connections when you begin to do this. So studying the opposite nakshatra themes. So yeah, that's why you have a square here. Now I'm expanding the nakshatra to the entire other nakshatras to show the interrelationship between other nakshatras. So now I have one simple slide on simply sharing some thoughts on the mystery of Ketu nakshatras. Now all nakshatras are simply connected to each other. That's one thing that you can easily say. Why? Because all the nakshatra lords are the same. It's the same nakshatra lord. You can say Ashwini have some kind of connection with Mula and Magha, or some kind of themes will be similar. I already demonstrated how the manes of the horse is connected with the manes of the lion. So clearly you can see one connection there. The second thing is that to connect with Mula and Magha, remember the banyan tree has its roots coming down. And one of the symbol of Mula is roots. Mula has roots. The Muladhara is the root chakra. So it's as if that you find an intricate connection between Mula and Magha as well. And Mula and Ashwini also be connected because Mula is roots and you use the herbs or roots to do a lot of healing, which Ashwini natives will end up doing. So in one way or the other, the nakshatras of the same nakshatra lord are intricately connected with each other. So that is the mystery of Ketu nakshatra. That's the first thing which I would have to say. And in fact, these are the trinal nakshatras. These are the nakshatras that would fall perfectly in trine. So it's as if, just like how the rashis in trine, such as all the fire rashis or the air would have the same air element, it's as if the nakshatras in trine are also having some kind of common themes. Even at the nakshatra level, the trine principle is operating. Now, the second layer is to simply think about Rahu nakshatra. Why? Because you cannot, Rahu and Ketu, both are intricately tied. When there is Rahu, there is Ketu. So what I was thinking was that just like how all the Ketu nakshatras are connected, clearly all the Rahu nakshatras are also connected. But the extra layer is that because Rahu and Ketu are connected with each other, it's as if the Ketu nakshatras will be directly connected with Rahu nakshatras as well. Now, one simple connection can be the fact that the nakshatra opposite to a Ketu is a Rahu nakshatra. That is always happening. So Magha is having Satabisha opposite to it. Mula is having Ardra opposite to it. Ashwini is having Swati opposite to it. So there is this clearly 1/7 connection happening between the Ketu and Rahu nakshatras for sure. Now, since we already know that there is a trinal relationship between Ketu nakshatra, similarly, a trinal relationship will happen between Rahu nakshatras. Now, when you combine these two trines, it's as if saying that one trine will perfect complement to the other trine. That's one way to look at it. Now you suddenly have a Rahu statement that Rahu and Ketu nakshatras are connected to each other. So these are some themes you will begin to the more when you begin to study more about nakshatras, how intricately connected all of this is. So I just put up a figure of the Star of David, which is showing the union of these two triangles, upward facing triangle and the downward facing triangle. Just the presentation of how the Rahu Ketu nakshatras are complementing each other. So, and in fact, because of this direct connection between Rahu Ketu nakshatras, you can almost say that Rahu Ketu nakshatras experience accelerated karmas, because the Ketu nakshatras would be definitely activating the corresponding next other two trinal Ketu nakshatras. But because of the connection with the Rahu nakshatras, immediately the Rahu nakshatras would also be energized. So that's why a Magha native would become famous, which is again, Visha team, and even Swati, they may be independent, extremely independent, and even Ardra, they may appear as a wild man, or however it be. So this is a very interesting thing which I came across. But so there is something definitely happening here. This needs to be studied, researched, and I'm sure you will find a lot of case studies here, simply because of the principle that Rahu and Ketu are connected with each other. So that is one thought I have. So let's see. Yeah, now we finally go into example. So finally, as I mentioning, one of the important symbol of Magha is the throne room. Now the throne room is showing a throne in a room, and the throne is positions of power. It's the chair. So these Magha natives would love to have their own chair, their own position. They may be the ones who will indefinitely finding a good set of chair. A big chair will be important for them, a powerful throne where they can sit. Now, the most famous throne in television, in my opinion, is the Iron Throne in Game of Thrones. Because Game of Thrones is literally the Game of Thrones. You can't get more Magha than this, So there should be some kind of Magha connection involved in Game of Thrones. Now, that's what I want to dig in. And you can clearly see in Game of Thrones, the throne is having like 100 swords. 100 swords melted into the iron. So clearly some Saturn teams for sure, So there's one interesting thing, because that's how that's the legend of the Iron Throne. Now, Game of Thrones actually created by George R.R. Martin. He's the author of Game of Thrones, the entire series, the books, or the Song of Fire and Ice, the books which ended up becoming the Game of Thrones TV series, which became the highest ever rated TV series, highest ever rated, but one of the big TV shows to happen. Now, interestingly, he has Saturn in, so you can see his Saturn is in 7 degrees of Leo, and he has Saturn in Magha. And this was the time birth data which I extracted from Astrology website. So it was, what I wanted to do, Dr. Pai, here was to simply extract and show Wikipedia extracts, and simply highlight how you can easily observe nakshatra themes operating when you are reading a Wikipedia. So this is how literally I used to do homeworks, and this is exactly how you could make easily a lot of nakshatra observations when you begin to do that. So this is how the Wikipedia extract begins. George Richard Martin, or George R.R. Martin, George Raymond Martin, easily referred to as GRRM, American novelist, short story writer in fantasy, horror, science fiction. And he is best known for his international best-selling series of epic fantasy novels or Song of Fire, Ice and Fire. So now I'm just going to show other Wikipedia sections. He has a long section. So I'll just extract out some Wikipedia extract, and we'll just explore the Magha themes that is very much clear in his thing. So is that his father was of half Italian descent, while his mother was of half Irish ancestry. So these Magha natives have some kind of ancestral connection. So interestingly, his father was a different descent from his mother. So if you were to meet George R.R. Martin and you to talk about his parents, so how was your mom, dad, then you begin to say, father is of half Italian descent, my mother is of half Irish ancestry. So this ancestry theme is already apparent in his family. That is one. So now, just to show the principle of how you can see his chart operating in the Wikipedia article, he has 2 younger sisters. Now look at his third house. It's Venus. So Venus is the karaka for female. So female siblings, third house Venus, sisters. So this is what I'm for the example. Now the next slide is showing the family first lived in the house on Broadway, and then they moved to a federal housing project near the Bayonne Docks. So housing project is a government-sponsored housing project. It's a project. It's like the government-sponsored houses for the poor people. So that's a federal housing project, and you can clearly see the governmental level interference here in his house or his fourth house in his home. So he obtained some governmental level favor his home, and you can see Saturn is in fourth house, living in government-sponsored housing project. Now, when he was a child, his world consisted.
Just one wait second. I'll just put my battery. I'm losing out on
battery. Right.
Just one.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead. Right.
Yes, Santhip, let's go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So what I was saying was that because his world, when he was a child, consisted of from First Street to Fifth Street, School Street to his home street, lived in a dangerous area. Between his grade school and his home, his limited world want to travel and experience other places. And the other only way of doing so was through his imagination. So he became a voracious reader. So it's an important point to remember because many natives may feel as if they are restricted. And that's what is literally Saturn was doing. His Saturn was restricting him to his home. But because of which his imagination improved, imagination became wild, and he also became a voracious reader. He read many books. So this is how Saturn is not a bad planet. It's actually improving your karma. It's actually setting the foundation, even though you may feel as if you are, but it's setting the foundation for bigger stages. So George R.R. Martin as a child, if George R.R. Martin asked that, okay, can you do anything? Can you remove my Saturn? He wouldn't be George R. He wouldn't have written Song of Fire and Ice, when he was old. So the important thing to remember. So when you see a child who is very introvert, then there are other gifts that are waiting to over time. So that is one theme I wanted to bring out here. But clearly, you can see the Magha influence clearly. How is there is governmental evidence as far as home is concerned, and he lived in a government-sponsored housing project. Now, Martin had an encyclopedia with a list of flags. Now, flags is associated with Ketu, and Ketu is the nakshatra lord associated with Magha Nakshatra. And also, Ketu is the reason natives love to conquer. They love to put their flag on top of something. They love. It's as if that the Karkatata in the house will be like, okay, I have conquered this land. And these natives may find themselves trying to conquer Mount Everest or go on trekking expeditions, go on hiking, lots of hiking, so that they can get to the height which Ketu is the Karkatata of, and they can actually see the entire land just like a king would see, the top-down vision of the eagle. So that's why they have this natural to climb towards heights. And these may be the natives who will literally climb up a tree without, even if you just gave them the hint, So that I've seen that also happening. So this is an interesting thing. Flags Ketu, you can see that from Wikipedia. Clearly Magha operating here. Next thing is that the young Martin began to write and sell monster stories for pennies to other neighborhood children. And dramatic readings also included. He wrote stories about mythical kingdom populated by his pet turtles. It was very interesting. The turtles died from the toy castle, so he finally decided they were killing each other off in sinister plots. Now that really sounds like Game of Thrones already. Like this young child was actually writing about turtles, and turtle is represented by Saturn because Kurma avatar is the avatar of Vishnu connected with Saturn. So you can see that operating. And then sinister plots is clearly Magha. A king is always plotting. So they always plots. There is this kind of sinister plot element with Magha. So that is one interesting thing. So you can see Magha operating from this Wikipedia extract as well. Now, when he became a comic book fan, there was a strong interest in innovative superheroes. So, like clearly superheroes, these are Superman. Anywhere you see Superman, Magha natives would be attracted to them. So, superhero interest, the mythical superhero interests, And then he was also writing fiction again. Ketu is sci-fi, so clearly he was writing science fiction, very abstract novels, so very almost mythical level novels. And what I haven't really included here is that he was also a huge fan of board games. So like he did Dragons and Dungeons and Dragons, those kind of games where there would be strong interest. So you could see natural fifth house is that of gambling and board games. You could see that, and even his son is in fifth house again, so which is increasing the board game element, the hobbies, the creative gambling games which you play. So I think all those elements you can see. Now this was a very interesting thing. He has written five books for Song of Fire and Ice, and he has written countless other books. But the machine which he uses is still this old DOS machine, which is running WordStar 4.0. So he's literally using a dinosaur machine to run his to write his script down. But luckily for him, he gets his work done. You inspire, and when you look at his chart, you can see that ninth lord of writing, Saturn ninth lord because it's Taurus ascendant, and it's in Magha. So you're using old-fashioned technologies. So you can think about this WordStar DOS machine like the ancestor of the computers. So the writing instrument he used is literally the ancestral machine or old machines. So these natives may be inclined towards using old pieces of technology or antique pieces, or ancient historical pieces. In fact, I've seen this element of inheritance that natives may be getting their family wedding jewelry and things like that. So you can, but the key thing is that there is some kind of old theme that is happening, ancient theme that is at Magha, and that's literally present in George R.R. Martin's case. So these natives may actually find, depending upon the planet and how low the planet is in Magha Nakshatra, they may find a lot of themes from the old elements, working. So these may be natives who will be comfortable writing on a typewriter or just the pen and paper, the old-fashioned way, instead of modern word with all the spell check and grammar correction, all of that, So that is one thing. And he actually has written a lot. So, it still works for him, So, it's sort of like going back to the roots, clearly, because DOS machine is the roots of the modern day laptop. So he said that he has a different computer for doing all his browsing, but as far as is concerned, this is his machine. So that's one thing. Now we go into
that's very fascinating, because if you take Taurus ascendant, Saturn becomes a yoga karaka for him, being the ninth and the 10th lord, being sitting in fourth house. So this is very fascinating that he's using, because Saturn is old things,
exactly,
and he's connecting back to the the kind of the old things, the antique things, which is very fascinating.
Right, Saturn is already old nakshatras of Amphitrite nakshatra of and Magha. So clearly that should be more strong for him.
Exactly.
That's literally what is happening for him. So that was very interesting. And this was actually I read actually about this information long time back in a productivity blog, because it was saying, okay, in order to be a writer, you just need to have the writing. That's what George R.R. Martin did. He just made sure that he didn't have any distractions. He just used a machine and just get the job done. So this was very interesting, and it was funny when I came across the information in his Wikipedia. So now we go into the epics series, which actually led to a Game of Thrones series. It's the Song of Ice and Fire. Now, a song of ice and fire should immediately say Gantanta to you, because ice is like on water, and then fire is literally fire. So I searched for if you had any Gantanta planet. The only planet that showed up in Gantanta was Jupiter in 27 degrees, which is close to Gantanta zone. And his Saturn is not in Gantanta, but it's in the Gantanta Nakshatra. It's in 7 degrees of Leo, so potentially that can be that. And it's a song of ice and fire. So, and his Venus is in 19 degrees of Cancer also, so it's not again Gantanta. So, but that was very interesting. Potentially in other this division may be strong Gantanta, what can be the case. But then this was interesting because the Song of Ice and Fire, which was inspired by Wars of the Roses and Ivanhoe. So these were actually English classics. So he got his inspiration to write Song of Ice and Fire by reading classics or ancient books. So this was clearly showing Magha themes for sure. And then initially he was trying to bring it write down a trilogy or just 3 volumes. Then right as the character base has expanded so much that it will become 7 volumes. So one connection to 7 volumes is like the 7 rays of the sun. So these natives may find things happening in terms of sun. So that's one potential thing that can happen. So like if George R. R. Martin had to end up writing 7 volumes, then you may have 7 companies, or you may have 7 projects or things like that, So potential for 7 is there. Now the next thing is that how his next interesting point which George R. R. Martin said about how Lord of the Rings didn't really have a very detailed or a more real plot line. So he critiqued the oversimplification of Tolkien's themes and devices by imitators in ways that he has humorously described as Disneyland Middle Ages. Or he's calling it he's literally calling Disneyland Middle Ages as the Lord of the Rings. Why? Because there are major differences between medieval and modern societies, particularly social structures, ways of living, political arrangements. So the social structures, ways of living, political arrangements have intricate details, and they are very, you can't put them into a good versus evil dichotomy. That's what he was saying. So he ensured that in his writings, in his books, the social dynamics would be clearly present instead of just a fantasy magical world where there's a good and there's an evil character. So clearly Game of Thrones is the most twisted show which you can ever see, and that's very clear because Saturn Magha was ensuring that things were real, so that was happening. So in which Magha themes of sinister plots, everything was happening. And was that if you look at Lord of the Rings, he said that it certainly struck me that although the world is infused with this great sense of magic, there is very little on-stage magic. So you have a sense of magic, but it's kept under very tight control. So I really took that to heart and started my own series. So essentially, social fantasy magical world. And there's like lots of magic in Game of Thrones. Like there are dragons coming. There is like people, two mask face, the man with no face. Things like that is very intricate element. Whereas in Lord of the Rings, the magic is like there's an elf or there is a story, things like that. It's probably not there isn't drama connected with magic in Lord of the Rings. It's more simplistic good versus evil dichotomy. That's what George R. R. Martin said. So to see those Saturn and Magha themes here. Now, another thing is that he's for attending science fiction convention, and it's clearly showing the Satabisha theme. And Saturn, Mulatrikona is in Satabisha, and Satabisha is the opposite to Magha. So Satabisha is conventions, large groups of people coming together. So you can see one kind of connection there. And then he actually had critics, so every artist, author, everybody has critics, friends, people, everyone. So George R. R. Martin had critics by some of his readers, periods between books in Ice and Fire series. So it's like there is long period between books of Ice and Fire. So there is the 6-year gap between 4th volume and 5th volume. So it's as if the readers are very dying. They are very impatient and they want everything immediately. So they kind of critique him. Then he said that he was unwilling to write only his work on one series and not working on other pros and working on other projects, editing different book projects as all part of his work process. So one theme that is there is that I think Saptarishis, they mentioned that the Magha natives may have to deal with a lot of in their lives. So this is one potential theme because Satabhisha is the Mula Trikon of Saturn, and he has Saturn there, so there is clutter element can be there. So because of this cluttered element, he has delays, which is what Saturn is actually bringing. So that's one way you can see why there's this gap or Saturn's delays operate in the volume 4 and volume 5. So you can clearly see Saturn in Magha. So he's taking his own time in finishing the books, So now, other interesting thing that he and his wife Paris are supporters of Wild Spirit Wolf Sanctuary. So wolf is like a wild dog, and Mula has the animal dog associated with it. So Wolf Sanctuaries could also be. So this Mula theme can be seen. This connection between Mula and Magha. And other sun is in Uttara Falguni Nakshatra, which is in 6th house from its moon. It's falling in a natural 6th house, which is pets, sanctuaries, things like that. And it's also 6th house from the moon. And which is the Nakshatra Lord is falling in 6th house from the ascendant. So clearly, and Ketu is conjunct Mars, which is also Karaka for dogs. Even Ketu itself is a Karaka for dogs. So you can see that wild wolf sanctuary theme here. That's one thing. And then the interest that one specific trait of Magha native is that they are known to leave their legacy behind. So one thing is that they definitely leave their legacy behind. They leave things behind for entire generations to remember them. And one way you can be sure, obviously he has written the Song of Ice and Fire, the Game of Thrones is behind him. That is his legacy for sure. But one way he has been immortalized is because a scientist who was a fan of Game of Thrones named a brittle star, which is starfish, after George R. R. Martin by calling it George Martini, because it reminded of the throny crown on the cover of Clash of Kings, which is book number 3 of Game of Thrones. So the star like the crown. So the scientist named the starfish after George Martini. And now he has literally left his legacy behind, his starfish. So, and again, it's very interesting. The star, it's a fish that is a star. So star is again sun connection, so clear themes, sun connection play. So that was very interesting trivia. But you can see that this sun is also in Mercury ruled Virgo. So anywhere connection with Mercury is suggesting some kind of name theme happening. So something you see. And finally, he's the fan of New York Jets, New York Mets, and he's also fan of the Grateful Dead. So Grateful Dead is directly showing the connection with Pitris. So it's not a Grateful Alive, but it's the Grateful Dead people. So it's like Pitris are dead people to whom we should be grateful. So he's definitely a fan of Grateful Dead, and you can see that these Magha themes of these dead people that is coming up. So this is the last slide. And I have one final slide, which is just to show that you can make use of the exalted, debilitated Mulatrikon positions of the Rashi Lord Sun, the Nakshatra Lord Ketu, and even Saturn if you wanted to. And you can clearly make out different kind of relationships clearly, because say for instance, Sun's Mulatrikon is in Magha. Now you can say that Sun is debilitated in Swati, so Magha natives may have some sibling issues, some friendships, and maybe some friends involving in their marriages or something like that, because Libra is the natural 7th house. And these natives may have some father issues, something like that, because Sun is exalted in 9th house from Magha ascendant. 3rd house friendship because it's 3rd house from Magha ascendant. And then Ketu is actually exalted in Scorpio and debilitated in Taurus. There are many versions for this, but one version is this, and some kind of home family issues, karmic issues, so even you can see how they are inheriting their real estate easily because of this connection with Ketu here. So yeah, this is for the for the viewers to see if they can extract any more connections. It's very, the idea is simple to look at these parameters would fall into, then connect the exalted doubleted multricon themes, connect that with Ketu and connect that with the natural zodiac. And then you get an entirely different set of predictive tools. So yeah, that's the end of it, Dr. Pai.
Santhip, now tell me, I had a question. Now, using the same theory that you are putting with the sun, being the Rashi Lord, is debilitated in Swati. So, can you say that they might have some issues when they're taking short journeys or anything because sun is debilitated in Swati,
Right.
which is a
Right.
Chara Nakshatra.
Right.
Is that the right way? Is that the right way, or is it? Do you think there would be a better way to understand this concept?
So for me, any planet which is debilitated, it is indicating that you have a point there and you can strengthen it further.
Correct.
So what ways you could interpret that what you said is definitely true. Whenever there is third house activated, whenever there is short travels activated, the sun's debilitated issues will be there. So as if that these natives may feel very confident when they are doing foreign distance travels.
Exactly. That's
but
ninth house.
But when they, ninth house, because sun is exalted there. But when they are, it's another way to interpret this is that the father away. They may experience a debilitated son, or the father's absence will be there. Why? Because the father is making short distance travels. That is one way to interpret this.
So when they were born, can you say that the father was in a short distance travel? Because
it's possible.
If it is Lagna or Moon, which is in Magha,
right?
Or in
you can say that, but I think there are specific formulae to see. I know there is some set of shlokas where you can identify if the son, the child is traveling, or is in between traveling, or is the close to the father's death at point. So that is clearly just based on fixed Rashi, movable Rashi, and dual Rashis. So you can make that out, some trines and stuff like that. So, but what I would say is that what you said is one definite possibility. But the clearer possibility is that if it is in Magha, then the Magha themes would definitely be prominent when they were being born. For instance, I know a native, when the native was being born, the mother passed away. Mother literally died, and the mother had to be revived back. So the mother had an out of body experience, and then the mother had to be brought back to earth. So I would say that it's as if all the Magha themes that you can think about should be. So what you said, the father being on a short distance travel is possible. The father being on a long distance travel could also be possible. Or some siblings marriage is also possible. Things like father siblings, right? Or father siblings marriage. Combining themes of son, or even siblings marriage potentially. But yeah, I mean, what you said is a very interesting point, Dr. Pai, because I do think that father away on that's solvable for sure. So yeah, especially if there are Swati themes that are strong leader in the family.
Or what about the father's business? Because seventh house is also partnership or business of the father.
Right. So if father did the business with a partner, the business failed, because son got debilitated. Or fathers did business with his siblings, then also the business failed, because son's third house, son's multrikona is here, and from that it's third house. So themes like that. So they may find their siblings too independent or too misdirected.
Exactly. Misdirected. Correct.
Yeah, because Swati is always distracted. So the siblings may be extremely knowledgeable, but because it being Swati, it's always scattered. So that can also be the
Pradvamsha Shakti. Correct.
Right. So I think if you consider the position, Exalted position, you will definitely see some connection for sure. No. Just for Rashi Lord, you can say that. For Nakshatra Lord, definitely you, as I said, Ketu is exalted in 4th house. So if the Magha is, then definitely you can see this theme, like getting inheritances, because you're getting 8th house here.
8th house, correct.
So it's as if you can see the Magha theme clearly just based on the exalted and debilitated position. And remember, George R.R. Martin was isolated in his, so it's as if Ketu is from Leo ascendant, So Ketu is bringing into his home as well. So even if his Saturn was in Magha in 4th house, in spite of that, say that because Ketu is exalted here in 4th house, that kind of improved his sci-fi knowledge, especially during his child. His imagination, abstract thinking, things of that nature. And Ketu debilitated here probably. It took some time for him to, or that's one way to interpret. But that is very fascinating because this fundamental parameters like Sun is exalted there, Sun is debilitated there, or any planet is exalted, debilitated, and its Mool Trikon position, that should definitely be connected with nakshatras. There's no doubt why it shouldn't. So that there is definitely, I am sure you can extract a complete system out of this if you sit down and work out each details. So what about that?
So, Santhip, this was absolutely stunning discussion that we've had. I know we had to break this down into 2 parts, but it is worthwhile that we did the second session because we've really gone very deep, and you also taught us a new way of studying charts. Is if you can look at Wikipedia and then you can go and start looking at those keywords which you can link with the nakshatra. I think that can give you some great insights of how you understand nakshatras. Most of the times what I feel, Santhip, is we are very good at doing the post-mortem, but then it becomes very difficult to look at somebody's chart and to predict ahead what is going to happen. But I think that is where your greater understanding of knowing nakshatras will come very handy, and knowing mythology, knowing rituals, knowing different themes, knowing about the deity. All these things, I think the framework that you put in, I think that's the underlying basis on which you can build, castles, because that's where I think the foundation has to be very strong. So, but thank you very much. I really appreciate taking your time and coming and teaching us. So, we'll definitely get you back for teaching us some more, themes of other nakshatras as well. So, thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah, sure thing, Dr. Pai. It's it was stunning when I could just study nakshatra. Still, I was able to see a lot of Wikipedia connections immediately. So it was probably, I didn't have to remember any of the houses or anything like that, because just when I was, and this was the beauty of nakshatras actually, because you could actually see the Wikipedia connection, like all the themes playing out, and then you sort of like you don't need anything else. So that was.
I think that's what an advanced student of nakshatras would do. Is once you know the basis and the themes of nakshatras, then you would just read anything about anybody on Wikipedia, and then you need to kind of judge, or kind of come in terms of saying what nakshatra might be operating in his chart.
Right.
What is more prominent?
Right.
So yeah. I think those sort of exercises is what we need to constantly keep training our brains. Even if you recollect, we've started this new thing about looking at different places and then trying to see what is your thought process, how people will start thinking. Now if I show you an image, what is your interpretation of what nakshatra is, what comes to your mind immediately? I'm not saying you really need to think too much deeply, but what is your feeling towards a nakshatra, or what comes to your mind instantly? That actually will go and help you And that's why I say, the stellar mind programming could be very fascinating, because once you do the stellar mind programming, your mind is actually programmed to connect with different nakshatras. So when you see those events happening in front of you, when you see certain images, when you read about certain stories instantly, or when you see, for instance, even in the movies, documentaries,
Right.
suddenly you start connecting with some nakshatra. So thank you very much, Santhip. It was
Right.
such a pleasure having you.
Yeah. This was great, Pai. Thank you for sharing everything and for having taught us the nakshatras and the beauty of it. So thank you for that. So
We're constantly learning, and we'll always be students of nakshatras forever. I mean, this
right.
it's so vast. Okay.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, great.
So
Great,
thank you.
Dr. Pai.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thank you, Dr. Pai.